let me know.
Stream
Okay.
is live.
Okay. Margaret, let's do a roll call, please.
Okay. And did you want to do a call to order at 5:30?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Miss Teresa Stevenson,
Here.
Mr. Philip Box,
Present.
Mr. Jimmy Sandoval,
Here.
Mr. James Streetman,
Here.
Mr. Tom Sidwell, Mr. Sidwell.
Here.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Okay.
Here.
We got you now. We need to make an adjustment to this agenda. Do we have a motion?
Did someone?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes. Philip?
I move that we move sections 7, 8, and 9 to just below number 3.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Got it.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Okay.
I guess do a roll call then.
Mr. Streetman,
Yes.
Mr. Box,
Yes.
Mr. Sandoval,
Yes.
Mr. Sidwell,
Yes.
and Miss Stevenson.
Yes.
And the motion carried to approve the agenda with those corrections.
Okay. Let me run through the list of people that looks like are on the agenda tonight. Myself, Jim Streetman, Ms. Teresa Stevenson, Mr. Tom Sidwell, Mr. Jimmy Sandoval, Mr. Philip Box, Dr. Gregory Bush, Mr. Joel Kaiser, Mr. Josh McVeigh, and I have to apologize to Blanca, but Miss Blanca, Mr. Julio Glendo, Mr. Jason Nimro, Dr. Denise Hackett, Dr. Dwayne Brooks, Dr. Alan Moss, Mr. Mark Martinez, Mr. Russell Irby, and Ms. Margaret Ragland. That being said, do we have any comments, Margaret?
Yes, sir.
From the public?
There were a few comments from the public.
Okay. Could you read those, please?
Yes, sir. This one is from Mr. Ernie Rogers. Says, on behalf of the fitness center staff, we ask the board to review the proposed revenue increase emergency action that are detailed in the emergency solvency plan in Exhibit 6 on page 3. It states that the fitness center community member fee will be increased from $12.25 per month to $37.50 per month, which is a 206% increase. After working hard to establish the fitness center as a clean, comfortable, and inviting establishment for all, we feel that this increase is not fair to the community members who support the facility and also our efforts as fitness center staff. These raises were not discussed with the fitness center director and staff, nor was an opinion asked on the matter to what impacts this decision might have had on the overall health and wellness of the community. The fitness center staff has recently discussed these potential fee raises to the community members, and many did not like that idea, and it appears that we could possibly risk losing members over such a small amount that could be raised, roughly $5,400, which is a little more than 0.1% of the $5 million that is being requested. Like most things at the college, the fitness center is not a business revenue proposition. It is a service and resource to all the community that want to use it. Nevertheless, the fitness center does need to raise more revenue. We propose that all that use the facility, faculty, staff, students, and community members alike, would shoulder the increase. For example, one solution to look at is raising the community member price to $60 per semester, which is an $11 increase, and then also ask faculty, staff, and students to pay a semester fee to use the facility, such as $25 to $50. Active staff and students who are using the facility have also been asked their opinion on this matter, and they felt that this idea would be reasonable. We appreciate the board in listening to another possible solution to this matter and consideration to this suggestion. And then number 2 from Mr. Marty Garcia. Unless Mesalands makes a determination to completely eliminate athletic fitness center and more specifically golf, as it relates to my position, recruitment at a minimum should continue. Otherwise, we are cutting off our nose to spite our face. Ironically and fortunately, there is no current golf program to cut other than myself as a coach. Please consider your return on investment in continuing recruitment efforts for the future enrollment. I would propose continued recruitment as a reduced pay, at a reduced pay if necessary, as there are several athletes currently interested in Mesalands for the fall and many others in communication. Cutting programs sets us back on years of constructive and positive progress. On a somewhat related note, internal staff are in dire need of assistance, as I have currently and in the past lost recruits due to inadequate processing and a lack of response. The athletic director nor athletic staff were not consulted nor communicated with by the executive team in regards to athletics that is mentioned in the executive team's emergency solvency plan proposal. Thank you for your consideration, as we all need to work together to get Mesalands back on track and prosperous. And then another comment from Mr. Paul Moss. It is believed that the emergency solvency plan was proposed by the executive team was not discussed with the faculty and staff before submitting it for approval at the previous board meeting. It needs to be clearly understood that the executive team sent an email out to all faculty and staff on Wednesday, February 8th at 11:29 a.m., the day before the previous board meeting, stating that the emergency solvency plan was submitted to the board and, in the executive team's minds, it was the most equitable way possible for us to all share in the responsibility of this situation. Mesalands is thirsty to create a culture of accountability, honest leadership, and effective teamwork. In times like these, the board and state leaders are encouraged to probe the emergency solvency plan and ask thorough and penetrating questions to get the truth and, moreover, judiciously inquire who is responsible, if anyone, for such a sad issue that has been created with our community that would potentially affect so many people's lives. Also, the board and state leaders are encouraged to inquire about how the executive team recently managed to lead the college in recent affairs dealing with the supposedly financial crisis. Their individual and also collective decision making, and even more interestingly, how they handled the faculty and staff. It might be important to in determining how does most of the faculty and staff vote a no confidence for a president who, by the way, had no idea of the meeting that the executive team called in order because the president was supposedly in Santa Fe that morning. Furthermore, it is believed that most of the faculty and staff were never in the weekly executive team collectively decision-making meetings. So, how could an executive team ask for a no confidence vote to the faculty and staff, a judgment call, with knowing so little facts about the story leading up to this situation? There appears to be a story within a story. very interesting to say the least. We believe in Tucumcari. We believe in Mesalands. We believe that with wise, competent, and truthful collective decision making, we can and will succeed. Let's hope that this is in our corner. And that's the end of the statements.
Okay. Going by our adjustments to the agenda, the next item on the list will be an executive session. Do we have a motion to go into executive session?
Mr. Chairman, this is Philip. I so move that we go into executive session.
Thank you, Philip. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Teresa. Roll call.
Mr. Sidwell,
I second.
well, Ms. Stevenson seconded, but do you vote yes or nay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Streeman,
Yes.
Mr. Box,
Yes.
Mr. Sandoval,
Yes.
and Ms. Stevenson,
Yes.
and the motion carried to go into executive session.
Okay. That being said, just the Board of Trustees in this executive session, please. And institution
Mr.
computing.
Friedman, at the end of it, could I be called back into a personal issue that I need to discuss with the board?
Then why don't you stay here with us for a moment? There's institutional computing.
And we
Yeah,
are live,
Jason
sir.
just called Justin, so we may be live. I'm not sure.
We'll find out here in a minute.
We are
I
live, sir.
expect he'll tell us if when we're live.
Okay.
Yes, sir, we are live.
Okay.
We're live. Yes, sir, we are live.
Okay. Okay. Do I have a motion to reconvene?
Do I have a motion to reconvene
from executive session?
executive session?
This is Philip. I move that we
This is Philip.
reconvene
I
to the
move that
regular
we
session.
reconvene to the regular session.
We sure got an awful lot of
We
feedback
sure
in
got a
some
lot
places.
of feedback.
Yeah.
in some places.
Hold on
Yeah.
a second. Hold on a second. I think it's me.
No,
Is that better?
No, I think that's coming out of the
I
big
think
room.
it's
I'm
coming out
not
of the
sure.
big room. I'm not sure.
Mute us.
We can mute. Oh, come on.
Okay, now.
That's better.
Okay, yeah. Do we have a motion to reconvene from executive session?
Mr. Chairman, I so move that we come out of the executive session.
Okay, and a second, please.
Second, Teresa Stevenson.
Roll call.
Mr. Box,
Yes.
Mr. Sandoval,
Yes.
Miss Stevenson,
Yes.
Mr. Streetman,
Yes.
and Mr. Sandoval,
Yes.
and motion carried to reconvene.
Okay, the next item is action needed based on the executive session or from the executive session. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we appoint Dr. Alan Moss as the temporary acting president of Mesalands Community College with all powers granted.
Do we have a second?
Second.
I'm sorry, who was that?
Jimmy, second.
Oh, thank you.
Jimmy? Yeah.
Thank you.
Tom made the motion. Jimmy made the second.
Thank you. Are we ready for the vote?
Yes, ma'am. Roll call.
Mr. Sandoval,
Yes.
Mr. Sidwell,
Yes.
Miss Stevenson,
Yes.
Mr. Streetman,
Yes.
and Mr. Box,
Yes.
and motion carried.
Okay, let's move forward with the consent
Well,
agenda.
I
I have a
Do
quick
we-
question,
agenda,
real
do
quick
we-
question for an open meeting.
Yes.
Yes.
With the open meeting, it seems that you already had a meeting to decide who should be presented. Was there an open meeting regarding that conversation?
That was Dr. Moss chosen.
Dr. Moss was brought in and already here and invited. I'm just curious of the open meeting to discuss the interim choices.
I don't know. I thought it would fall underneath a personnel issue.
According to board policy, there shouldn't be any meetings outside of the meeting. And then we went straight into executive.
If it's personnel, we can conduct a meeting with personnel issues, and I was assuming this would be listed underneath the personnel issue.
If it's personnel, we can conduct it.
We can't hear you, sorry. We can't hear you.
It's unclear when Dr. Moss was invited to the board meeting. Was he invited via another meeting?
No. No.
No, no. No.
How was he chosen to attend?
Yeah, how was he chosen?
How was he chosen, and how does that decision serve the best interest of the faculty, staff, and students in the community of Tucumcari?
Dr.
Did
Moss
you hear the
was-
question, sir?
can't hardly talk with that feedback going on. Thank you. Dr. Moss was addressed. We did not talk to Dr. Moss personally, but the last meeting we had, Dr. Moss's name come up when we were in executive session. This was a personnel issue, and we discussed it then whether we wanted to reach out to him or not. We didn't come out of executive session and make a statement, and possibly we should have. But that being the case, we can just set this thing aside right now, and Dr. Moss is going to be appointed. If it doesn't happen tonight, it will happen next Tuesday night or a meeting between now and then. It's just however we want to do it. We feel like we need somebody that is neutral to this, partially because there's been too much finger pointing from both sides. And the finger pointing we feel like needs to stop right now. Our best interests right now are for our students, the college, and the community. It's just kind of in that order. Students number one. If you guys disagree with the way we've handled this thing, then fine. But we'll, as of right now, I don't know, Dr. Moss, have you got any suggestions on how we can handle this and correct it any better? I guess the next best thing, we call another special meeting and we can appoint it then. Or we can go to the next Tuesday's meeting and do it then.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, but Joel Kaiser's question was not answered. He'll repeat it.
How does this decision best serve the interest of the faculty, staff, students, and the community of Tucumcari?
The Board of Trustees at this particular point in time feel like we need somebody that is more neutral to the position than you are, and then possibly we are. And that being said, we think that Dr. Moss's expertise and everything else and his years of experience as an administrator will come into play here, because I don't think anybody on the executive team has the years of experience he has as an administrator.
Okay. Sir, the executive staff feels this choice is retaliatory to the executive staff and not choosing somebody from the executive staff as interim, or not consulting with NIMIC, the New Mexico Independent Community College Association, which we belong to, and which HED had suggested to use as a resource for an interim as well.
The Board of Trustees feels like this is the best choice we have at this particular point in time. If we bring in somebody else from out of town, we'll have the additional expenses of room and board and lodging. And with Dr. Moss already here, that little thing is taken care of. There won't be any additional expenses there. We also feel like he's the most neutral person. To help us through this.
That's fine, sir. Just please have it on record that the executive staff feels this is a retaliatory measure, and this could open the college up to legal issues. Enough said.
There's nothing retaliatory about this.
There was a question that was put forth, sir, about whether communication actually happened to Dr. Moss outside of the board meeting.
Dr.
The
Moss,
reason for the curiosity is, according to Board of Trustees communication policy, communication.
Can I answer that?
Yes, sir.
With your approval, Mr. Streetman, do you mind if I address
go right
that?
ahead. Go right ahead, sir.
Guys, as those of you that know me best, my intention was to take a step back from administration and keep my head on the job that I was hired to do. You know, a couple people, faculty and staff had kind of said, oh, you need to submit your name for that, and I laughed it off. Mr. Streetman called me Saturday to ask if I was interested in that, and so I visited with my wife for an extended amount of time, because as you know, her health is not very good, and I said I would, if it will help, you know, if they think that I could help. I don't know if that answered your question, Mr. Irving.
No, and Dr. Moss, please don't take this as a attack against yourself, because as you know, I know you well. But according to the board policy, communication is only permissible with college administration unless it's been business matters and that are pending before the board. They cannot discuss matters with administration that are pending before the board with any member of the college administration. So if they discuss that with you, they're in violation of their own Board of Trustees communication policy 2.9.
Okay, then how are we going to proceed with this, folks?
We're gonna do it next meeting, if that's what they want.
It's not a matter of want, sir. This is a very particular subject and it can go very legal. We just want, for myself, I'm that legal part. So I've got to make sure everything happens. I'm on both sides of this. I walk that razor's edge that I discussed last time. I've got to make sure everything is legal, because then people could come up and go, he's put in position. If he makes decisions, and then if someone goes, well, he shouldn't have legally been in that position, do all those decisions then get overturned? So that's my part of it, especially if it's personnel issues towards terminations, hirings, anything. If suddenly 4 months down the road, it says, well, Dr. Moss says bringing on was not legal, what happens to all of those decisions? That's my concern. And then if we have to let people go because of that, then we open up a lawsuit. If we terminated people, vice versa. That's my concern. I just want to make sure all T's are crossed, all I's are dotted.
So my recommendation, I'm not in a position, but let me, if I can speak,
Please.
is, Mr. Irby, you need to spell out to the board what needs to happen, and whether I'm a part of that or not doesn't matter to me. But you know that probably needs to be a discussion on the proper process by board policy on how to proceed at going about this.
It was fine if everything would have happened at an open forum. That's where we're at now, because conversation happened with you outside of the public forum, and it just violated one of the board's policies. That's where we're at right now. So like I said, if this is discussed open forum and it happens, then it's fine.
I'm kind of trying to figure out how it's violating a policy if I call the man and ask him if he would be interested in the position.
Because the college cannot talk to the board cannot discuss things with college administration that are pending before the board. Because
I'm not discussing college business. I'm asking the man if he would be interested in helping us through this period.
Yes. Asking someone to be the president of the college is college business, sir. That's the part of it, because he was asked if he would be the interim president, and he's a member of the administration, and it was done outside of the board. It's just, I know it may sound like legalese, but it's in the policy. So that's the problem we're having at this point in time.
Okay, it's legalese right now, and we're discussing it openly. I guess I'm not even quite sure where to go. Do we start all over? We've made a motion and we voted on it. If that hasn't changed, we can take that right now and sit on this thing for a few days until next Tuesday or sooner. I think the earliest we could possibly have another board meeting would be Friday.
I mean, we can move. I mean, sir, we're in support. I mean, no one here has anything against Dr. Alan Moss or his qualifications. But the only issue that I had was I didn't want there to be legal issues down the road.
Right.
That's my only scare. I mean, we wouldn't have Dr. Moss in the position he's got if any of us had any issues. He's a very qualified person. But I just have the issues. It's almost like a police officer down the road that gets caught perjury. Is every decision that was ever done before knocked out? Same situation. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I think too, it's also about communication and transparency moving forward. It's going to have to work both ways, and it's not to serve us. It's to serve everybody at that campus and this college, students and Tucumcari. Like this is, we have to operate in some form of transparency going forward for both sides to succeed.
And yes, sir, I agree with that
Well,
100%.
open forum. So if the public had been able to speak, if the executive board been able to speak, you know, and it didn't happen to a college administration outside of the board, that would have been, everything would have been great. Now there's going to be questions about that going forward. What other decisions were made outside? Has anyone else been talked to?
Like adjusting
The answer to that question is no, sir. There hasn't been.
adjusting the agenda.
Each and every one of you has got a chance to speak right now.
Yes, sir.
But adjusting the agenda seems, right off the bat, you said we need to adjust this agenda to start off with, so we need that motion. It seemed that Mr. Box was in agreement with you prior to this. It seemed as though there was a meeting prior, an agreement to change the agenda in a certain way or manner prior to this actual meeting.
No, sir, there wasn't.
Okay?
And this brings back to a situation, and I'm getting a lot of feedback from, and I know it's something we've discussed a lot. Moving forward now, you know, if it can be put on the board meeting for next time, if members can't be for medical, and as I've discussed, I have a father who has COPD, can't be around crowds of folks. If we can go back to open meetings, but if any board of trustee member wants to be there by video, we have the capability of doing that, and we could go back to public meetings because we have a lot of folks who are saying they want to be there. They want to have their voice heard without having to type it in, go through the jumps and the hoops. And also we're getting that from the AG's office that we've got to start having these. Is there any way we can do these teleconference for those who don't wish to be there for medical reasons, but still go back to having public meetings?
I think we can.
Wait to see if Dr. Moss was brought in. He could, you know, the public could actually have their say on it also.
Yes, sir. Those are things that we can address. Right now, the way I'm seeing it, because of some of the things that I'm dealing with and going to have to face, the earliest we could probably do that would be one of the meetings starting in March. I can't do it before then.
We're not asking for y'all to be there present at the thing, just video, sort of like now. You could be there just the way you are now, but the public would be in the room wherever it was happening at. Because we understand that, you know, the medical issues, it could be stuff with COVID still, or whatever it would be, but any board member who wished to still be video could be video. But then anyone who wanted to be there could, but the public would be in the room and be, just like us, invited to speak if they had something to say. That's the biggest issue I'm getting from the state, and the biggest issue I'm getting from the employees and some people from the town is I couldn't get on the computer. I don't feel like my voice is being heard. They don't want to hear what I've got to say, and that hurts the transparency.
Okay. We'll have to see what we can do about that. Again, back to the issue at hand. Fellow board members, how do we want to proceed with this? We want to proceed with this. We've made the motion. We voted on it. Anybody has any complaint in that room about Dr. Moss serving as our acting temporary president? Okay, at this point, Margaret, the vote's been cast and passed, and at this particular point, I'm not sure that we have violated any of the rules that they think we have. But Dr. Moss, we're going to appoint you, or temporarily appoint you, as our temporary acting president for the college.
Executive staff,
You muted.
sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
The only concern we have right now is an executive staff.
I appreciate that support, but this is not the way I would want to help and I don't mean any disrespect to you, Mr. Chairman, or the Executive Council, but if this needs to be redone or relooked at, you are not going to offend me. Or if you need to go a different direction, you are not going to offend me. And I hope I made that. I hope everyone understands exactly what I'm saying.
Yes, sir.
Because I do not want to be a part of anything that makes the job that's going on right now any more difficult.
Okay. All right, good.
Our only concern right now as an executive staff, and Dr. Alan Moss is a wonderful person for the position, so don't get us wrong. Our concern right now is that, to our knowledge, no action has been taken on the current president. We still have a President Bush who is not here, of course, and he's not on the call. I wanted to be that clear as well. And we're still paying him as the sitting president, and that just doesn't show that we're being very fiscally responsible, especially when HED is aware, and everybody here is aware. We have one more pay period to go that we can afford, and we need to be understanding that we can't afford to pay the sitting president as well as an interim and move forward. We will, of course, take suggestions from the fitness center, though, to reduce membership fees in the event maybe that'll assist. But we still have, again, money for one more pay period, and we need everybody to be aware of that. We need to make decisions quickly now.
That's
And
one of
in
the
this
reasons.
situation, what occurs with Dr. Moss as the interim if tomorrow President Bush walks on campus?
Dr. Bush will not be back on campus.
But if I have no medical paperwork for that, does anyone else?
I don't have it yet.
Well, I don't have any, so how do we know?
You're the person that's been communicating with him. I haven't.
Yes, sir.
On his
There is
medical
nothing.
He has filed for
There is
long-term
nothing medical.
disability.
Okay. There's nothing medical, nothing physical. I have no paperwork whatsoever in any form that says he won't be back here tomorrow. But he is not here. He is not answering calls.
Now that this is a personnel issue and we can't go any further with this
That's what
discussion.
Yeah, well, not the personnel issue. It's not a personnel, but as far as a decision made, what happens if a decision is made? Whose decision takes precedence?
You could email us and say,
At this point right now, I would say our acting temporary president will be in charge.
That's all we needed was some state. We needed that to know, because we're going to throw our full support behind Dr. Moss.
I
And we
think
just
if
needed
you'll
that.
go right down, we'll do a little vote right here, and I think every member. Mr. Box, what's your say?
I think Dr. Moss will be the man to make the call where he's being appointed as temporary acting president.
Okay, Teresa, what's your say?
I think we voted in good faith for Dr. Moss, and bringing him into the meeting was in good faith, and we were considering it as a personnel issue. And I'm in agreement that the vote should stand.
Jimmy?
Yeah, I feel the same way. We should stand for him, for Dr. Moss. We need somebody to run the college for now.
Tom?
I'm in favor of Dr. Moss being the temporary acting president. We need to move forward. We need to get unified, and starting tomorrow, let's get this thing resolved.
And we fingers too fast.
I think you got cut
Uh,
off.
we thank the board for this. This is what we wanted. We needed something to move forward. Like I said, we have no hesitancy about Dr. Alan Moss. We just wanted to make sure that everything was covered because, as you know, things come up, and then in order to bring the board back again, it could take time, things get set out, and plus the legal precedences. We just wanted to make sure that this college was ready to move forward and do well. That was the only concern the executive staff had.
We have to move forward, and folks, we've got to stop pointing fingers and everything. We've got we've got to work together. Whether we agree on everything or not, that's beside the point. But we have to work together to keep on moving forward for our students. Number one. That being said, can we move forward with the rest of the meeting, sir? Okay. Consent agenda. We have 3 sets of minutes for January the 17th, January the 24th, and February the 9th. We can consolidate it in one action item. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes for those 3 meetings?
I shall move.
Okay, Margaret, you there?
Nice.
Yes.
I second.
Okay, Jimmy moved and Tom seconded. Roll call.
All right. Mr. Box,
Yes.
Mr. Sandoval,
Yes.
Mr. Sidwell,
Yes.
Miss Stevenson,
Yes.
and Mr. Streetman,
Yes.
and the motion carried.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the chairperson's report, and I've got a few items here we need to go over. The board hasn't seen a true financial statement for quite some time now. That being said, we try to be lenient about it. We try not to be too pushy about it, but it's at this particular point in time, no more excuses. The reports need to be to the these are the reports that we're asking to be in the board packet on February the 21st of 23 and each month thereafter. We need a monthly balance sheet. We want to see a cash flow sheet. We'd like to see a copy of the check register, a current copy of bank statements reconciled, accounts payable, accounts receivable, notes payable, notes receivable, payroll. We'd like to know if we received all the COVID funds that we were eligible to receive and how they were spent. And that's really what I've got at that particular point there. Next item on the agenda is discussion of solvency.
No
Wait,
response?
Whoa.
Wait, sir, we have responses.
Sir, with all due respect, as you are aware, I came here in August and I have been reporting to all of you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, all of the difficulties that we have in the business office to produce reports. We do not have the capability to produce financial statements. If you go back to my reports every month, I have outlined every month all of the efforts being done to, one, select personnel to help us catch up the accounting that I found to be 2 years behind. Sir, I cannot give you reconciled bank accounts because we're a year behind in the reconciliations. And ever since last year, when you all received the campus work reports that I just finally got a hold of, you've been aware, I hope that you've been aware or has been shared with you, all of the system problems that we have, which has led Mesalands to be unable to see financial statements. I am able to provide certain level of reporting for our cash available right now, which I am starting to provide to HED, and I'm happy to send that to all of the board members. But I'm unable to do all of the reporting that you're outlining there because our accounting is 2 years behind. We don't have a system to produce financial statements. As I mentioned in my report from November, I hired a vendor to help us create financial reporting because our system does not produce that. The only financial statements that we get were from our auditors. I was able to track down their templates and provide it to the vendors so I can work with them for the next few weeks. If we have the funding, right? Because now we only have one payroll left. If we have the funding to be able to create financial reports for this institution in order to provide it to you and to HED. I am afraid you have not been reading my reports because it doesn't seem like you're understanding the position that we're in. All of this team right here has had to step in to help me write reports because we're so understaffed. We're so understaffed and we don't have a system. We need a new ERP system or re-implement the one we have because it doesn't work. We're doing a lot of manual work. I am working weekends, on weekends, and it's not sustainable. And I'm being asked to cut my salary in 15 to 30%. I don't think that's fair, sir. It's also, at this point, I would consider this retaliatory because you have been aware that this has been a challenge. My next board report is going to contain all of the information that I have shared with Dr. Bush in the past few months that I hope he passed along. I hope he passed this information along to you. Because when we reported to HED and when we came into the meeting in December, I shared with you all of the challenges that we have experienced. So I cannot produce all of what you're asking me. I cannot. My team cannot work any harder, sir. And you've been aware of this issue, I hope, and I think you've been aware of these issues from last year around this time when that assessment was done and the college paid $75,000 for this report. And I just cannot fathom how come more measures were not taken. How come I was not shared with that report the day I stepped on campus? I was not given this report. You know when I read this report? In mid-December. I spent 5 months trying to investigate all the issues that this college has on my own, with no data to go by, with no reports, all of which could have been resolved if I had given this report and saved me all the time and effort I put to find this out. So, sir, with all due respect, I will do my best. But I think it's a little bit too late at this point. It's a little too late. I have been misled to come to this institution to work with no tools, with no reporting capabilities. I was not given the information that I needed to know the day I stepped on campus. I have been misled to bring my family here, to try to do a good job for this community. With my fingernails, I've been working to try to get the information. The data disappeared, had no report to guide me through. So I will do my best, sir, but I don't think I can comply with what you are requiring right now. I am not able to comply even with HED, who's probably watching right now. So I will give you everything I have given them, and that's all and the best that we can do at this point. And you please excuse my agitation because I'm just exhausted. To be honest with you, I'm just exhausted, sir.
Please excuse our agitation too, because the fact we've been given information and led to believe that we had the funds there to pay it, and we have acted on the reports and things that have been presented to the board from this group, the executive group. We don't dream this stuff up and pull it out of the hat and spend money accordingly that way. It's usually on the presentation of the group.
No.
And the business office.
I have not given you reports,
Yeah,
sir.
ja.
I have not given you reports because I cannot give you accurate data. I would be lying if I gave you reports that are not reconciled. So I cannot give you those reports. I can give you certain facts and certain figures, but I cannot give you financial statements. And I cannot give you certain reports, sir.
Josh
Because
McVeigh.
it's just, we're not able.
No, Josh.
Get in there.
I'd just like to ask, the equitable compensation package that was done in January of 22, this board approved it. Do you know how much of an increase that was? Was there a sustainability study done? And did you know what assets you had when you approved it?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear everything. I apologize.
So the equitable compensation package, which was approved by this board last year, Dr. Bush presented it.
January
And you approved it
2022.
January, well, it was issued out January 22, but December, I believe, was presented. I'm simply asking if you knew how much an increase that he gave everyone except for the chiefs and VPs. But you approved it.
We approved it, but I don't know that we had the actual numbers.
Right. And then the next question is, was there a sustainability study or was there an assessment as to the funds that were available to pay for those raises before you approved it?
I can't answer that.
So I'm speaking to, you say that we don't give reports. You approved this in January, and we're talking $800,000 increase.
$800,000 increase that now we're trying to solve via the emergency solvency plan. This team right here that that you don't trust is trying to solve a problem that other people are responsible for back in December of 2021 and January of 2022. So that's why we're getting agitated, sir.
$800,000 approval, but yet no one knows that it was an $800,000 approval. How can a vote be done to approve $800,000 and nobody be aware of how much it costs?
Then somebody approved hiring each person at this table during the course of the year. We didn't just walk here. We didn't just show up through a wrinkle in reality. Somebody hired us. Somebody negotiated our salaries. We're sitting here trying to save this college, and all we're getting is flack. So excuse me, sir, if I'm agitated now. Excuse me, sir, if Blanc is agitated, or Josh McVeigh, or anybody else at this table.
And
But
myself,
now-
I made the choice to move my family down here, put my daughter in school down here. I was misled, thinking we were in good condition. Had I known, now I know there was issues with finance, then I would have never moved my family down here. This is very serious, and we're the team that's trying to fix this, and it just doesn't feel like we're getting the respect for that.
And you show us disrespect by not even considering a person at this table for the interim position to lead the college out of this. The fact that we've been putting in all this time, going to Santa Fe, sitting in front of the Legislative Finance Committee, sitting in front of HED, going through all these meetings, just like we did today, supporting the college. We moved here from California, Denver, California, Sacramento, Virginia. We are here. We're the ones sitting in front of you. However, the person who's responsible for this, in addition to others, is not here. They walked away, drove away, left town. Honestly,
it's
really
time that we
frustrated
stop
about
the
this.
finger pointing. Please, it's
Well,
time that it stops.
We're trying to
We've got
fix
to
the
move
problem,
forward, and we
sir.
can't move forward if we're still going to finger point like we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Sir, I'll finger point here. I spent $20,000 of my funds to move here. Sold my house. I own a house in Tucumcari, New Mexico. So I was told this college is going up. I was told this college is financially stable. I was told I would create an HR department because there was not a real HR before here. I'm still digging. I'm still uncovering violations, federal violations that were done with the previous group, the previous president who's not here. I moved my family here. I bought a house here. I invested in this place. My son goes to college here. He goes to school here and will go to college here. I got nowhere else to go. So that's what I'm invested in. And then I get here and told, oh, you might be out of a job in a couple of weeks. Please don't talk down or act like we don't have an investment, that we don't care about what goes on in this college, that will just take away 30% of their funds because they're not really part of this. We have been the ones that have been struggling to make sure this college stays here. I mean, there is nothing more I've got invested than my entire life in this college right now. That's why we're frustrated. The person who said everything's great, don't worry, who kicked me out. I was part of this executive group. I was told I could no longer come to the meetings. You know why? Because I started saying, no, you can't do that. That's illegal. No, you can't do that. That's illegal. Mr. Irby, you're no longer invited to the executive sessions. That's what's happened at this place. That's the character that's gone on. And that's why I've had to send stuff up to the state. So you got to understand my frustration because I'm asked to make decisions that could be in violation of law just to make sure this place stays open. That's our investment. Joe?
I need some clarity on the Campus Works report. Was it shared with the entirety of the board from Dr. Bush?
I don't know at this point. I can't remember. We have seen a lot of stuff, and I'm not exactly sure whether we've seen all that or not. Again, that's how many months ago was that?
A report that tells you whether this campus can stay open or not? That should be memorable.
Last year.
A report that would have saved a lot of people time and effort and gave us better direction. And that's, I think in that instance, you guys can understand where we're at, something that would have such a major impact on the operations of this institution.
Well, we'll have to go back and find out, sir, when this report was actually shared with the board, which is really disappointing. The fact that we're kept in the dark.
Yeah, we were shredded.
You're not the only one that's kept in the dark, and that's the reason I'm having a little bit of tough time too, just like you guys are. You guys have got things invested in the community and yourselves, everything. So do we.
But it seems like we're being protected while the person who brought all these problems isn't.
We're being punished.
That's what it seems like, that we're being punished. And the person who brought the problems isn't.
You're going off on a direction now that gets under personnel, and we're not going to discuss that in an open meeting.
Campus.
Okay, at this point in time, these are the reports that we would like to have, as much as we can get. Again, this has been part of the issue. We haven't got reports either. You guys, what we have got from the business office has been very minimal. We know the conditions that you guys have been working under, but we also know that part of the issues didn't just come about in this last year. You referred to the 21 audit. Yes, the 21 audit. We can't hardly talk about it yet because we haven't seen it. But my understanding was it's been submitted to Santa Fe, and it's awful. Dr. Bush wasn't here for the 21 audit. He was here 30 days for that time cycle, 30 days. So I'm pretty sure he didn't have anything to do with that 21 audit. Again, this is something the board didn't know. We didn't know how bad this thing was going to be or how bad it was going to develop or where it was headed. This has all come about in December, January. We found out some of this, and I haven't even seen. I think Blanca. What?
The audit, sir, we finished submitting requirements to the auditor in late September, October. There's still things trickling down to us in even November. He was still having a hard time finding data that we have a hard time finding,
right,
because our records are spread out all over the place, because we don't have good records, good data. We don't have good systems and way to report it. All of those are issues. And the understaffing of the office. The office couldn't handle all of the requirements from the auditor, being so understaffed and trying to conduct daily business. So it is kind of a perfect storm. It is a trickle effect of being understaffed, being overburdened, being, it's just one thing on layers on top of another. So I spoke to Marty. I received an email from Marty. He said he will be submitting that as soon as possible because it was under second review. This is the last thing I heard today.
Today, okay.
Why-
The last I heard, this thing had been submitted to Santa Fe as a draft in January.
Potentially, it was on second review for a while because of all the many issues that it had.
Okay.
I just wanted to point out a little bit on the timeline too. I was actually present for the beginning of all of this. And if you recall, the first CFO who was hired was Hazel Roundtree. And when she first got on campus, she worked for a month before she got on campus. Then she got on campus and was presented with the financials. She looked at them and immediately said, I can't and I refuse to do this job. At that point, it was then pushed back to Miss Tammy, who was in the business office. The CFO, she was managing the business office. She was trying to be CFO. She was trying to manage all these things. HR, payroll, all of it was understaffed. She was not allowed to hire anyone to help her, and it was overworked. So then it was given to Miss Natalie as special projects. And he wanted to call it special projects because Dr. Bush didn't want to call it CFO, but he didn't have anybody at that time. And Hazel was moved over to student affairs to be responsible for housing, since she refused to do the CFO position. Once that happened, Natalie took it to special projects and did the best that she could with Wanda's help because she had experience with that. But at the same time, she was a chief academic officer, and she was also administrating and helping the business office and trying to do the best that she could. And so it was really overworked there. So again, this is all compounding over time, these decisions that are being made, these hiring processes or the hiring decisions, and it's just compounding the problem and creating more. And then finally we went out and we got Stephanie Otero, and then Miss Otero made it very known that we were in trouble. And again, that situation, she had disagreements with Dr. Bush after telling
That's
him.
that's personal.
That's personal. I won't go that, but
Just staying away from personnel issues. I mean, going back to late 2020, 2021 then, and early 2022, when we hadn't arrived yet, it was probably evident there was a weakened financial position of the college. There weren't any up-to-date financial statements, as you recall. You had an inadequate financial system to, all these things would probably trigger leadership at the time to be more cautious with spending while trying to address deficiencies. But instead, leadership at the time instead opted to move forward with increasing all salaries at the end of December of 2021 and January of 2022 across the board, and not having a CFO or a fiscal effort on staff to verify or validate any availability of funding. So now here we are paying the price.
And we're not saying that the money wasn't needed for the staff. What we're saying is y'all should be aware, if you're going to make that large of an increase, you have to notify appropriations. It has to go through the system, and that way the money is there, and we're not in this situation. But instead, it was like, no, I'm Santa Claus. Here's the money. The state is never notified. That's why they were like, where did all this money come from? Who said you could have it? How did you get it to spend it? And it's like, well, it was just decided. So it was done incorrectly. Not that the employees don't deserve it, because they did. They did deserve it, but it's got to happen a certain way, as y'all know, and it wasn't. It was just awarded out like a Valentine's Day candy. And that's the reason why we're in there, because there was poor financial leadership from that area, and that's why we're hurt now. That's the reason why I might not be, financial solvent. Why she might not. Why she might not. Why she might not. Is because of somebody's decisions that went outside of policy and law.
HED found out on February 1st that Mesalands College implemented across the board salary increases back in December of 2021 and January of 2022, whenever it was approved and implemented. They were notified 2 weeks ago of something that was done over a year ago without their approval, without their knowledge. The Legislative Finance Committee was not very happy about that, because that was the start of going over the college's appropriation budget by now 150%. But here we are trying to fix it. Other people not accountable. Not everybody on this call,
Personnel.
people that aren't here.
Can I ask a question? How is it that we need, so I want to be open here about a couple things. And I don't want to go back and forth, but one, my salary wasn't even discussed. As far as I know, I'm still at the same rate I was paid anyway. How is it that we need, and this is an honest question, 4.7 million, and I realize the pay raises was definitely an issue and the hiring, but what else contributed to that overspending beyond that? Because that doesn't add up. The raises might equal the 800,000, but the additional help I don't think adds up to 4 million. So where do you guys have an idea? And I expressed to the board that just from my view, you all have done a tremendous amount of work on this. And what I did not want to do was come in to discount any of that. I thought it might help. Obviously, that's not the way this is working out. And those of you that know me know what I'm saying. So, do you guys have an answer for that? Where did that 4 million all come in?
Ms. Blanca.
Blanca will answer.
So, Dr. Moss, approximately 2.5 of that is going to be the salary overrun. As far as I can project it with the very limited and inaccurate data that I have so far, and having to produce reports in 24 to 48 hour time frames, and having to produce calculations on Excel sheets and things like that. So that's why, as I told Mr. Abbey and as I tell HED, do not pin me to these numbers because I don't have accurate data to go by. Secondly, because our salaries overrun our budget so significantly, all of the operating dollars were completely consumed by the salary overruns and the fringe benefit, which is estimated to be 35% of the salary line. Therefore, we need extra funding to also cover our operating needs. It might not be the 4.7 or 4.5, it might be less, but at this time, with the time constraint that I was given and the bad data that I have, that's all I can project at this time. And it might change.
And Dr. Moss, also something that happens, like I said, you understand administration. You understand you have to put forth for appropriation before money's spent. Right. And they might say, well, we're top heavy, whatever. Well, that's because the last administration was hiring and spending without ever asking for the money and not even knowing what the money was there. So if you haven't asked the legislature to give you the money and then you're spending the money that you never asked for in the first place, you asked for what was the last time and you asked for that same amount, but yet you spend a lot more. That's how you get to 4.7 million over. Capital projects.
Well, we're upfront the capital projects, but we do get reimbursed. When I started here 6 months ago, we had about $1.8 million saved, pretty much saved in the Wells Fargo account, and that's all gone. And that tells you something. So
what I'm hearing is that this is a combination of salary increases, but it's also a lack of our reporting so that we didn't and return on you should have been getting from the state and that is.
I'm not hearing you really well.
Mute us for you.
Can you hear me? Is that okay?
can
would
hear you a
that,
lot better now, sir.
okay, sorry, I'm not a great technical wizard. But that would be an accurate reflection of, so it's a combination of all those things, and really this is going back 3 or 4 years, right? Yeah.
Go ahead.
And Dr. Moss, as well as we've experienced firsthand, increased instruction and correctional and dual credit. It's unexpected post-COVID, which is good for us on the numbers, but it requires us to have more instructors in the field. So
Yeah,
that's,
we're
If-
underfunded there.
Yeah.
We don't cover, based on the revenue we get from that, it doesn't cover the bare cost.
If I may, Dr. Moss as well, Blanca and I have been up to Santa Fe to run through all this with LFC and HED was here on February 1st. They sent a letter on February 9th to Dr. Bush, to Mr. Streetman and the board. That letter came from Stephanie Rodriguez, our cabinet secretary. It outlined their findings from their visit on February 1st.
Right.
And also they included a timeline of events that goes back to November of last year when they started to become aware of these issues. So we can provide you with that letter if you haven't been provided with it already from the board. It's very detailed. It explains all the issues also that they have, that they've seen, that's been reported to them. And it'll provide in detail all the things that have contributed to where we are right now.
And please understand, I wasn't questioning your data. It was just a question that I thought of when Ms. Blanca was speaking to that. I may be in this position 10 minutes or it may be longer. I don't know right now, but if I would ask if when this meeting is over, if I could meet with you all, if you would mind if I came over and visited.
Yeah.
Come on over. We're sitting here. Come on over.
We have a lot of catching up for you to
Got
do
some contracts for you to
to
sign.
let you know.
It's here for you right
Yeah.
there.
There's a lot of catching up to do. Going back to November of last year when HED really got involved, actually December. So we'll share with you all that information just so you can see what's happening.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
You're muted, Jim.
Next item on the agenda is discussion on the emergency solvency plan.
Solvency plan.
Yeah, go ahead. Sir, if I may, Mr. Chairman,
Go.
one last thing real quick, if I may. You mentioned solutions, so I just wanted to quickly mention as institutional advancement, I wanted to make sure that in your role, whatever the role you have on the foundation, we need help now, right? As much as I go out and ask for money, people ask for financials, as you can imagine, right? Mr. Sidwell, I come to you and ask for $1 million, $500,000. You're going to ask me, as everyone else in the world has, give me your financials. I cannot give them that. So anyway, not making excuses. I'm out there trying to do what I can without a budget, et cetera, et cetera. Don't cry for me. But still, the point being that we need the foundation's help. So to the extent that in your role, your leadership role, I believe, in the foundation, we need to ensure that the foundation is in fact a component unit of this college, right? I work for $1 billion foundation. I brought in $130 million in my past 26 years of fundraising. But anyway, I've never seen a community college that has not been a component unit of an actual college. And so I know it's been duly noted with the auditor, Marty, and others, and the 500 or so that he's audited around this country. And so I just want to express my sincere desire to make sure that whatever is in that corpus, if it's $2, $3, $4 million, we only have as much money in the bank to fulfill this coming payroll February 24th. And while the state is indicating that they may help us through DFA, HED, LFC, there are no guarantees, sir. So one thing that you can all do, you probably already know this, no matter how the money's tied up. I've done this before when I had people with $100 million in an investment account. They go and buy their $10 million home in Hawaii on a margin loan, right? So just keep in mind that you can do a margin loan no matter how that money's tied up, unless it's somewhere offshore that just cannot be touched. I don't know. But still, we need the foundation's help. Number one, we need the foundation to call a meeting, elect officers, and vote as to whether they will assist us if we need to within 24 to 48 hours to make sure that this college is viable. And so I will leave you with that. Thank you.
Okay, back to the discussion on the emergency solvency plan. Do we have any, do we want to go any further with this? Do we want to change anything on this, or we want to just leave it lay? It's an action item, so we can make a motion on it to look at it, and we can vote on it and leave it lay, or we can change it. What we were considering changing, and what I had at least one board member call me, one board member, mind you, and was a little bit concerned that possibly that 2% off the bottom, that the numbers wouldn't come up right, and maybe that number, that 2% should have been spread out accordingly upward. That's neither here nor there. Does anybody have any comments they want to make on it? Do we want to go there? If we don't want to go there, then
Mr. Chairman, could I comment on that?
yes, sir.
You know, I know that the 2% does not amount to very much, but I have not talked to any of the executive staff about this, but I think the purpose of that was to show that we were all in this together, that, you know, the executive staff was willing to take and 15% is a huge cut for the jobs that they do. 10% is, I mean, you know, they, and I don't know how much they or Dr. Bush had a part of the plan. That's another question that I was going to ask later. But the purpose of that was to be a very minimal hurt. And you all correct me if I'm misdirected here, because I don't know the reasons, but it is minimal. It's more to them, but it is also a very small percentage. And I think that's what I would see as the reason that was put in there. And I would hate to see, it's not that I would want to take money away from somebody that's not making as much, but the percentage was much lower than the upper income. I'd just like you all to take that into account.
I'm not in favor of putting it back in. I'm not in favor of putting it back in because of the fact, could you guys please mute that? Please. I'm not in favor of putting it back in because I've been on the low scale before, and I understand just exactly how tight that can be. As I progressed in my career and I got a little bit higher in the salary wise, it was a little bit easier to adjust for something like this. But I'm definitely not in favor of putting it back in. So at this point in time, do we have anybody's comment on our solvency plan from the board? Do we want to change anything or not?
Yes. Yeah. If we may.
I believe Teresa. I believe.
Okay. I was wanting to ask some questions. I lost my notes now. The comments from Ernie Rogers at the beginning of the meeting, is there a possibility of looking at that part of the fees for students and community members as far as the fees for the fitness center?
Teresa,
Ms.
that's
Stevens,
kind of a
actually
separate
part of
thing.
the fees, they already pay for that.
Isn't that part of the? Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that would be a separate thing right now. Right now in the solvency plan, we're talking about
just
that 2%. Do
okay.
we want to make any changes on that 2%, add it back, take it, leave it out, or move forward?
think you should.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we can, it's up to the board. You can take it out, can leave it in.
But we
Honestly,
still
the solvency plan needs to be approved as we need to make it
Yeah,
flexible.
yes, sir. But we
because
haven't
honestly-
got there yet.
honest-
That's
Honestly,
next.
the way it stands right in terms of the emergency solvency plan, we're gonna have to adjust it as needed as we get guidance from HED. So those percentages, they're fine for now, but it may not be enough. Also, we have to have leeway in terms of doing furloughs and layoffs, which is still being recommended as a partial solution. Again, we're in a position where we need to try to bring our numbers down. We have one more payroll, and it's right now we do not have secured funding through the rest of the fiscal year. So as far as we're concerned, the college is on route to close in a few weeks. Until we get confirmed funding, until we get a clear path from another agency, we have to do our best on this side and show those other agencies that we're willing to do whatever we can here, as well as just operate the college for the benefit of the students right now. And if that means whatever, reducing the fitness center fees, if that'll help, whatever. Right? And there's not going to be a fitness center in a few weeks if we don't take any action on things. So,
Dr. Brooks, have you all had any feedback from HED on the plan after the board passed that last week or approved it?
No, not yet.
The solvency plan as it is, yes, HED has looked at it. They're saying, it's nice, but they want to see the results of it. So in other words, as it is right now, this is the plan that they see. They would like to start seeing the results of the plan after it's been put into action, which it has not yet.
Okay. So, sorry, I have one more question. There seemed to be some confusion with the staff. So what you're saying is the plan, and I'm trying to catch up, is not something set in stone, but that would take some, could be adjusted. We might find something else that could be a cost-cutting measure and maybe take something out. But what you all have been doing is working with HED to try to get to where they can see we're trying to do that. Is that right? That's a long question. I don't even know if there was a question in that.
Yeah, to answer your question, I have to give you some background here. Yes, HED first had approached us to try to back out the salary increases that were done in early 2022 after they learned about those. It wasn't feasible for us to try to back out salary increases on an individual basis, although that would have, because people have changed positions and such. So the proposal we came up with kind of hit that close to that number. However, again, we could be in a situation where we have to do more. We're not going to be in a situation where we have to do less. So if we're going to communicate anything to staff and faculty, it has to be in the, hey, this is where we're starting from.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's probably changed.
Okay, folks, do we want to amend the emergency solvency plan or leave it as it is?
I make a motion that we leave it as is.
Okay, and a second?
I will second that since it's pretty fluid.
Okay. Roll call. Or vote, please.
Ms. Stevenson,
Yes.
Mr. Streetman,
Yes.
Mr. Box,
Yes.
Mr. Sandoval,
Yes.
and Mr. Sidwell,
Yes.
and the motion carried.
Okay. Next is the approval to immediately enact the emergency solvency plan. Do we have any more comment on that? We've been around and around and around it, I think, all night long. If we have no more comments on it, do we have a motion to approve it?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we immediately enact the emergency solvency plan.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
And a roll call, please.
Mr. Streetman,
Yes.
Mr. Box,
Yes.
Mr. Sandoval,
Yes.
Mr. Sidwell,
Yes.
and Ms. Stevenson.
Yes,
And the motion carried to immediately enact the emergency solvency plan.
Okay. Announcements. Looks like the next thing on the agenda, we'll have our next board meeting on February the 21st. And at that point, we'll go from there. I think it's at this particular point in time, unless somebody has got, well, we've covered the agenda, and that's all we can do for right now. So at this particular point in time, we will call this meeting adjourned at 7. Well, I'm not sure what the time is because my clock is wrong.
7:40.
7:40. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Everybody have a good evening.
I'll be over.
Good night.
Yeah, doesn't
Okay.
Good night.
Thank you.
Happy Valentine's Day.